Hey, this is Martin Martinick from Accept, and you're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
You're tuned into another episode of The Business Side of Music. Today, joining us from the Los Angeles, California area is Stephanie Leyva, who is the Director of Partnerships at Thematic. And we're going to find out all about Thematic and what it does and the services and the relationships and the partnerships that they have with creative people. Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Are you a creative person by trade? Did you start out as an artist? Really, kind of what's your background?
Yeah, so I think I've always been creative, maybe not in the sense of, being a music artist. I definitely can't do anything in that. I can't sing, I can't dance. And as far as like content creation goes, I've always been, content creation curious. But either way, I've always been a curious person. I love to do DIYs, but I definitely didn't come from a musical background. Really, I've always been so interested in the entertainment industry in general, which is how I even ended up, finding Thematic, and why I found it interesting in the first place was because it was this new concept of being creative, but not necessarily having to be in front of the camera or, the music artist singing or the content creator producing the video. So my background comes in more of the entertainment field. So I used to do product placement for this film company. And so I learned creatively how to use products within film. And then when I, moved over to Thematic, it gave me a different lens on how we could do that when it pertained to music or with content creators.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that's going on these days is... I think it's one of the biggest things that's going on in this climate now in the music industry is getting your music placed in different types of visual formats. I'm not going to say video formats, but in visual formats, whether it be film or it be a TikTok video, the little 15 seconds, or it be something on YouTube. But I've never really considered there would be a company to help expedite and navigate those waters. Is that what Thematic is all about?
Yeah, so essentially, I kind of went over the product placement concept. Essentially, that is what we view music as, or at least how when Thematic started, it was viewed as a product. At the end of the day, it is a product. It's an artist's product. So the song is able to be placed in that video, and we utilize it in that manner. But really, it started off more as a concept of bringing these two worlds together, something that at the time, back in 2016 or early YouTube days, when our co-founder was on YouTube, these two worlds were so disconnected. It was the music artists would, do what they do, and traditionally what they would do and reach out to people and get them to play their music or get them to listen to their CD and whatnot. And then you had the content creators who are on YouTube, and they were kind of in their own world and didn't really know how to go about getting that cool music in their content or, how to do it safely. So really it was built more on that community aspect of bringing these worlds together and having them essentially exchange equal value. So for the music artists, it would be that music and getting them placed in front of those creator videos. And then for creators, it would allow them a chance to work with these amazing artists that are emerging and have amazing music that they wouldn't otherwise find. At that time, SoundCloud was obviously an area where creators would search a lot for music, but it didn't always make it a safe experience. There's, as you know, there's a lot of remixing and all of that across SoundCloud. So this kind of allowed for that to happen. So really, we are a two-sided marketplace that houses these two creative types and allows their exchange to happen and connections to happen online, but doing it all safely so that both ends see value.
And I think that's one of the biggest questions we always ask, our listeners will ask, and that is, where is the value in all of this? We sometimes go down these paths, down these roads where it's like, well, hey, I can help you get music placed. I can help increase your listenership or your viewership or your followers. And, all you have to do is pay me this much money and I'll make that all happen. And I think sometimes we lose the true value, whatever that is. I'll just say that, getting that is in a position of where, you're going to get more exposure, you're going to get more followers, more streams, more downloads, whatever it is. So how does this work with Thematic in creating that value? And you said there's really kind of two sides to the coin.
Yeah, I think that's very important, especially like now you're mentioning, like, how does this happen? How do we create the value? Especially now, I think with the, emergence of TikTok, and it's gotten so huge. When we started, obviously TikTok didn't even exist when we started doing this. So primarily we started on YouTube, right? But now with TikTok in the picture and with essentially creators doing the same concept on TikTok, how does the value get created, right? We focus a lot on the organic creation of content. So that's very important, and key to really our product is these things are happening organically. So music artists place their music on our site and they want to do it because they want to work with creators and they want to get their music promoted. Content creators, on the other hand, find this music and they organically use it in their content because they love it and because they want to support the artist. So that makes for a better piece of content and makes the value equal there for both. What you get a lot, I guess, now with, TikTok and sponsorships, especially around music, labels and artists pay creators to now use their music in a piece of content so that they can get exposure. And while that still works and it's still good to do, I think it's not the only piece. I think there's a lot of value around the organic discovery of your music. And then on top of that, of course, layering the sponsored posts and adding that to almost instantly give you a push. But there's nothing that's going to drive it significantly if there's no organic growth either. So while that still works, it can sometimes come off as like inorganic for the content creators fan base. And people see that more and more now. And then for the music artists, they might not see the return if they are targeting the wrong creators. So how our product works is we target the right creators by collecting data around, the type of content they're creating, what type of creator, what type of music interest do they have. And then we all match that across the site with the right fit artist. So then we're eliminating that process of potentially not being a fit for the content.
When we talk about organic growth, and that can really be a term that is thrown about quite easily, how do we determine, in very laymanistic terms, just the real kind of the basic root of it, how do we determine what is true organic growth for that body of work or for that individual, that creative content creator?
So I think for the music artists, they can measure growth or organic growth, right, through several different areas. Our site, we pull in the stats for them to view so they can see what's actually going on. When I reference organic growth, I reference it in a way that creators on our site are using the content or the music organically. This means we do not pay them to use the music. We obviously curate on our site, but we don't pay them. We don't send them a message and say, hey, please use this song. The artist doesn't send them a message and say, please use this song. So they're truly finding this, discovering this, and loving it. So on that end, that's what I mean by organic. On the music artist side, how they view organic growth or how we deliver that is through, their stats. They're able to see what's happening through those organic interactions. But then if they're measuring their Spotify, they can see the lift of what that placement will do for their streams. So let's say they get one song placed in this particular video, and they are someone who likes to look at stats and measure that. If they go over to their Spotify, they can see what that video organically did to their streams. And most of the time that'll lift that up. And that's how they're seeing that organic growth. And then on top of that, we're talking about sponsored posts and all that. They can layer on those additional things if they have money, which, most independent artists don't. But if they have additional budget to use, they can then layer on those things. But at least we provide like a baseline of the organic growth on streaming, on following, on Instagram follows, maybe it's YouTube subscribes. Depends on where they want to essentially target the fans to go to.
On the show with us today, Stephanie Leyva, who is the Director of Partnerships at Thematic.
You're listening to the business side of music.
As a musician, you have a dream, that vision of what success looks like for you. Though it's not only about the money, money is part of it. Whether you've been extremely successful or you're just striving to maintain a regular cash flow, you need a plan. Money Concepts can help you develop a customized plan to achieve the financial stability and success you want. For over 40 years, Money Concepts has been providing holistic financial planning services to individuals, families, and business owners. As an independent firm, Money Concepts and their associates are committed to always represent the best interest of the client. It's really about a committed, benevolent interest in them personally. This independence, coupled with that committed, benevolent interest, means they represent you, the client, not a product supplier. It's not about selling products, it's about helping you achieve success. To learn how this can benefit you, contact my buddy, John Adams, with Money Concepts at 737-867-9309. That's 737-867-9309. You can also email John at jadams@moneyconcepts.com.
Hi, everyone. I'm Larry Butler, and I want to send you a free digital copy of my new book, The Singer-Songwriter Rulebook, 101 Ways to Help You Improve Your Chances of Success. That's right. Everything you need to know to launch your career as a singer-songwriter, all based on my 40 years in the live performance arena, and believe me, I've seen it all. In my book, you'll find the 10 things you have to deal with before even thinking about becoming a singer-songwriter performer. You'll also learn about the 5 things every singer-songwriter can do this weekend to make their live show better. 5 things I can guarantee that you are not doing already. Plus, there's tips on songwriting and staging, photo and video shoots, publishing, merch, dozens of other topics. All written for people who don't particularly like to read. And again, it's free. Just go to the Business Side of Music website homepage and look for my book cover. Click on it, and a free digital copy of my book will be yours. I'm Larry Butler, and I approve of this message. Thanks.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back on the show, Stephanie Leyva, who is the Director of Partnerships at Thematic. When we talk about these different platforms, and you mentioned earlier that, TikTok wasn't even around when your company started. And I think TikTok is one of those companies that to this day probably still has a lot of people scratching their heads. I know I'm one of them myself. When we talk about those various platforms, whether it's TikTok or it's YouTube or it's Instagram, is there one that's better than another? Is there one that makes a bigger impact? Or as a creative person, should you really be planting roots on all of those platforms?
Yeah, I think it's very important as a music artist for you to understand where you feel comfortable in. Whatever platform that is, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or any of the others, it's very important to figure out what you feel comfortable with and where you feel essentially most connected with, because that's really the most important part for you to have a successful presence on that platform. But when we're looking at YouTube and TikTok, it's really not, it's kind of like apples to oranges. They're different. And that's what makes them so unique. And there are positives and negatives to each. When it comes to YouTube, it's great for that long form organic content. So I mentioned like we drive a lot of organic content creation. And our primary area to drive that is through YouTube, because that's where we started with creators and music, right? That is a very important piece to also then TikTok. A lot of content creators that started on YouTube, then the emergence of TikTok came about, then they started creating videos on TikTok. And then now we're seeing the reverse of that, where creators that started on TikTok are now on YouTube creating videos, right? So one platform is great for the organic content creation, and you do see more conversions when it comes to music artists as far as transferring that audience beyond the platform. So YouTube is great for that. So you can create content on there and artists can be promoted in their video. Maybe there is a link in the video description, and those audiences are truly engaged with that artist, and then they can go follow across all other socials. Whereas on TikTok, what you see is generally just a lift in that video in the artist on that particular platform, not outside of the platform. So those are kind of like the main differences we see. Of course, there are more data points there. I'm sure someone at TikTok can correct me, but what we see generally is that the organic content on YouTube tends to be a lot more evergreen and, tends to follow through with the artist beyond YouTube. Whereas with TikTok, it tends to just be in that moment if there is nothing else that is added beyond that piece of content.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I just had the conversation with someone last week, and that is what you determined, or what you indicated as evergreen. Constantly finding new music for me, and this is the conversation we were having. Found a body of work on YouTube that I absolutely loved, and it had several 100 million views. It had been on there for 6 or 7 years. Now, I like to think I'm pretty up on a lot of the music scene. I'm always exploring. I'm always listening to new music and new artists. And yet, here's a body of work, and I want to say it was 400, 500 million people have touched that in the last 6 years. I'm glad that it's still out there, and that's what I do love about platforms like YouTube. They don't necessarily eliminate content. On Facebook, things can eventually disappear, and you have to look really hard for it. And YouTube keeps it out there, and that's great. But would that be something that you would consider an organic growth? Now, I preface that by saying, once again, I listened to a lot of music, wasn't sure who this act was, had actually heard the song on a television show and used my Shazam to listen to it. And I went, oh, okay, this is very cool, and really got into the band after that. Is YouTube, and I guess I'm getting to my point here, is YouTube better for that type of discovery than, say, TikTok?
I think there's pros and cons, right? I think YouTube is great for housing a piece of work, like you mentioned, and having more of that full story moment. Something that they've been really great at, obviously, over the years, is really sharing and driving those stories through content. And, as an artist, you can put out a full body of work, and the YouTube community receives it because they're used to that form of delivery. I think when it comes to TikTok, right, you're used to a shorter form of delivery. So if an artist were to deliver something similar, it's might not be as well received. And I know that they're leaning more towards getting there, right? With now they're able to accept 3-minute videos or longer. But that
this is TikTok you're talking about.
Yeah, TikTok. Yeah. Now they're able to essentially house videos that are longer than 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 3 minutes, up to even 10 in some cases. And with live streams, they're trying to incorporate some of that longer form concept, so to speak. But I think when it comes to discovering music and finding something that you love, right, you have those TikTok bits of a song, and you might fall in love with the bit of a song. And I've heard this from my friends as well, other people outside of that, where they might find a piece of the song that they love on TikTok, which is just the sound, right? And then they go and stream the real long version, and they don't like it, or they don't feel connected to it anymore, and they just know that one part. I think that is not so great for the artist, of course, because if you work on a giant piece of music, you want them to enjoy the whole thing. with YouTube, they do that very well. You're able to actually enjoy the full piece, and I think fall in love like you did with the full body of work, and not just focus on or hyper focus on this one tiny piece that essentially is not as important than the whole body of work. So while it's great, I think TikTok is great for driving additional promotion to the song. When it comes to kind of having that community and cult following behind an artist and a following of a sound that you love, I think YouTube is great, or a little bit better than that.
So this is kind of an additional layer to the initial question I asked. When we talk about TikTok versus YouTube, and as you have been describing it, I get the sense that TikTok is a great introduction to a body of work. You mentioned that TikTok is now expanding its playtime, the levels. They're getting beyond 15 seconds, 30 seconds, etc. Is this something that TikTok themselves have seen as maybe a more leveling of the playing field, getting more competitive with YouTube, or is it? I wonder what's driving that. And then I guess the second part of my question, and maybe this is an entirely separate question, is how much of the record label, the music label community is driving this versus the independent?
Yeah. Let's start with your first question, right? I think ultimately all these social platforms, I feel like, are always competing for different things and, taking features from each other, right? Just like Reels now on YouTube is essentially what a TikTok is. So they're constantly taking and, putting things out there, testing things out. I think they're naturally just competitive. So TikTok being the content creation space and all that, I think they're looking to still keep some of their creators who want to create long form content now. Maybe they're growing out of those 15, 30-second videos and they want to try something longer form. I think they want to have a space that has those creators that are still able to be there. But I'm not too sure, I think that's a question that is still kind of developing and brewing as this next year happens and as new things occur on both of those platforms. And for me, it's exciting, obviously, because we work with creators across all of these platforms. So we're pretty agnostic when it comes to that as a platform, right? Basically, we want to be able to support any platform where creators are creating, whether that's Twitch, YouTube, TikTok. But they're definitely competitive. I think all the social media platforms are really competitive when it comes to keeping their audience on their own platform and creating features that are going to keep them in. And
so getting to the label aspect of it, because I'm old school. I grew up in an era when you still bought vinyl at the record store. And then, of course, we, graduated to CDs before downloads and streaming. The record companies were extremely influential back in those days, and I think to a certain extent they still are. How does this play with the label versus the independent artist? Do they seem to be able to have equal footing? I mean, is that something that Thematic looks at? Does that make sense to you?
That makes sense. That's something that we're really passionate about, because I think more now than ever, the independent artist needs a lot of support and they need tools that are going to help them get discovered, because we do have a problem of the labels and the label artists getting the most amount of support. And the independent artists are what we call like the middle class of creatives, not getting enough support out there, right? They don't have the amount of funding that a label artist has to support initiatives like promoting their song on TikTok through paying influencers, or running ads, or having a huge production team to produce these YouTube series, or, all of that. A lot of them just do it all themselves based on, what they like. And that's why I mentioned earlier, like, it's very important to figure out with an artist what platforms they like. Because if they naturally gravitate to, let's say, YouTube videos and they're creating content there, then they're able to develop their audience with their own content as well beyond their music. They can find a connection through, how they're producing their music. Maybe it's behind the scenes. Maybe it's something completely out of what they even, do. And then, I think more now than ever, it's definitely more important to focus on that cohort, which is a cohort we're very much focused on. It's how we started this, right? We started with independent artists, and a handful of independent artists. One of our co-founders owned a small independent label back in the day. And so he had a handful of artists that he told this idea to, and they were, excited to try it because of course they were trying to get their music out in videos. And at the time, our co-founder was also working with content creators at that point only called YouTubers. And so he would use those songs from those artists that he was helping to produce to add to those videos. And he was really seeing the value. So we've always been focused on the independent artists since day one. Of course, we support label artists as well. With the way that labels work, it's a little bit harder when it comes to the rights and all of that. But we definitely still want to support, music label acts. They have a lot of emerging talent there as well that needs to also be supported. Maybe they have a little bit more budget, but they're not getting as much support as they should be. And so we still want to focus on those artists. But for the most part, the independent artist that is not tied to a label is really the area that we focus on that needs the most help. They need, beyond just the tool to promote their music and new ways of getting discovered, I think they need a lot of help as well with learning the ins and outs of the space when it comes to rights, when it comes to their own, what their own rights are, as well as what they should be doing to maximize their earnings and where they should be pulling their revenue from. I think that is the cohort that I'm most passionate about and that Thematic definitely was built on.
On the show with us today, Stephanie Leyva, who is the Director of Partnerships at Thematic.
You're listening to the business side of music.
It may have been Tammy Wynette who sang Stand By Your Man, but it was actually Nancy Jones who stood by the legendary George Jones for more than 30 years and helped bring him to the light. Now in her new book, Playin' Possum, readers get an intimate look at the country music legend through the eyes of his wife and partner. Nancy knew George Jones better than anyone. The good and the bad. The horrendous and the hilarious. Married in 1983, George quit his wild and wicked ways for a while, but Nancy learned all too soon that there were demons holding a strong grip on the man she loved. People who knew the possum credit Nancy's tenacious love, faith, and encouragement for saving George's life and rebuilding his career. For the first time in Playin' Possum, Nancy Jones reveals the true insider perspective and little-known stories about the country music legend, his battles with cocaine, alcohol, abusive behavior, battles with himself, and against the demons that sought to control and destroy him. Read the compelling first-hand account from the woman who refused to give up on George Jones. Playin' Possum is available now. Order your copy today from nancyjonesbooks.com, Amazon, and more.
Whether you consider yourself a musician or not, music is all around us, and it affects our everyday lives, whether it's background music influencing our shopping habits in a store, organ music adding the vibe to a baseball game, or a playlist convincing us to keep going on that last mile of a run. I'm Mindy Peterson, host of the podcast Enhance Life with Music, where we take a holistic look at music's benefits through the lens of science and medicine, entertainment, and business. You can find me and Enhance Life with Music at mpetersonmusic.com/podcast or wherever you get your audio.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back on the business side of music, Stephanie Leyva, who is the Director of Partnerships at Thematic. We've kind of gone through all of these different levels, these different layers of the onion. Let's talk about Thematic in its own right, and what its services are and how it works for the creator. So let's talk about Thematic.
Yeah, so how Thematic works for music artists. We took this concept, I guess let me start from let's go back in time. Back in time, at least when I remember early YouTube days, artists would reach out to influencers, YouTubers, creators at now, right? Through email and send out this giant paragraph of what their song was about or what their album was about. And then provide a SoundCloud link and say something along the lines like, hey, got a new record out, got a new single out. I really would love for you to use it. I allow you to use it for free in your YouTube content. Just, shout me out, give me a link. So this is the concept that had already been going on for so long across YouTube. And essentially we took that same concept and built it into our platform so that artists can do that at scale without having to email every single creator individually, find these creators, find their location, track, and then be able to figure out, did they use my content? Did they not? If they did use it, did they credit? That was a big piece of the puzzle as well. A lot of creators, not because they didn't want to, but maybe they didn't really know how to go about it, use the music and didn't credit. And then the artist would never find that placement and they would never know what happened. They would see something, maybe, they were able to see, oh, I think I got more YouTube subscribers, but they didn't know where they were coming from.
Right.
So we took all that concept, which is essentially a marketing funnel, and we built that into our product. So artists can see where the content is posted. They can track it. They can see how many people are using it, how many fans converted over. They don't have to email the creator to essentially reach them, and they can reach anyone globally. So we're removing all those barriers. They don't have to focus on just US creators. They reach any audience across the world. Thematic is obviously global. So they can have fans, and you'd be surprised. Some of these artists are like, wow, I didn't realize I had fans in Indonesia. That's super interesting. And they can get connected to these new audiences that they wouldn't otherwise have a chance to do. So for the music artist, it was a marketing tool that we built. But now it's become obviously so much more than that. It's become more of a community tool as well for them to engage with their fans that are creators, but as well with their fans from those creator videos. So they're able to develop those relationships and go beyond just the piece of music. They're able to take that, and now, if there's a creator that's an illustration artist and they're working on a lyric video, maybe they connect now and they are able to create that together. So it's become a lot more. For the content creator, essentially at the time when Thematic was created, there wasn't a place where you can find these artists, these independent artists with awesome music and use it in your content and be safe. There was a lot of music libraries where they had just some boring background music. Obviously, I'm biased. I'm going to say boring, but it was very boring. It was very repetitive. You heard the same music over and over in every YouTube video. And as a viewer, it got really boring. But so we took that concept, and there were some other sites that, of course, only did, sync licensing for videos, for movies and such. So essentially, we became that middle piece where we were able to use these awesome songs and essentially a micro sync, right? And add that to the video and make it so much better and allow them to tell their story in a more impactful way, all while doing it safely as well, making sure that the artist had the rights to give out and that we had the rights to then sublicense, and then the creator obtained those rights through the platform, and then that we were able to protect them through any copyright claim so that they can monetize their content, because their main goal through creating videos is monetizing that video so they can earn an income, right? And so we are able to do that all through, that connection and make it a safe space for creators to feel like they could use music again in a fun way, and they would not be penalized for using awesome music. They could feel connected again with music and with the artist, and essentially also make the experience for the viewer, like us, of a YouTube video, make that experience a lot more fun and engaging along the way.
I come to Thematic as a content creator. I have a body or bodies of work that I want to present. What is that process? What should I be looking at, and what should I expect?
As a music artist, our platform is completely self-service. So we wanted to remove any barrier. Again, we don't want to be the gatekeeper, just like labels have so much, been in the past, where they allow you to hear what they want, what they think is awesome, which is, whatever's played on the radio is based on what they think is awesome. Now using more of that data, but historically it was definitely just who wants you to hear what. We never wanted to be that gatekeeper. And so our platform works in a full open concept, right? So the artist gets to go on self-service, upload their song. So anyone across the world can upload any one of their songs and our system will process that. Our team will take a listen. There is a process for checking the rights, of course, and we make sure everything is safe before it goes on the site. So that's fully self-service, and you just need, your album artwork, your sound recording, and a couple of other items that we ask along the way. And if you have that all set and you create a profile, you're pretty much set to go. So it's pretty instantaneously, when you upload a song, it's automatically in our system. And for music artists, by the time, let's say we process everything, your song can go up as soon as the processing takes. So if the processing takes a week, it can go up in a week, it can go up in less time, it can go up in a little bit more time, depending on the rights. But it's pretty quick. And as soon as it's up on the site, that song is delivered across hundreds of thousands of creators globally. And it gives them access to view the song, listen, and download and use it in their video. And we provide instructions, of course, on how to properly credit so that the artist sees that promotion on their end. And then for the content creator side, it's also self-service. It's instant. So you sign up, you create an account, you hook up any of your areas where you're posting content. So if you're posting content on TikTok, if you're posting on YouTube, if it's Instagram, wherever that is, you add that in so we can do some learning about you, right? And figure out what type of content that you're creating, because ultimately we're trying to make it easier and faster for them. And then once that's all set up, we have a curated experience that gives them song selections based on their type of content, based on their interests and needs. And so they get to go through a curated experience on their homepage, and they get to see some cool areas. We have some editorial playlists as well based on different content types and pop culture trends as well. So it's all pretty seamless. For us, it's all automated for the most part. And it was an important piece for us to build a lot of things into the product. So that concept that I mentioned earlier could happen at scale. Because obviously, like when you start working in different territories across the world, things are different. But if you automate it, you're able to essentially scale the pieces that are just the core, and then we can work on other fun things that like partnerships and creator partnerships and brand partnerships and all that. But yeah, that's essentially how it works for the content creator and for the music artist. Content creator can get signed up and download a song in less than 5 minutes.
Are there costs involved?
So on both ends, we start off completely free. So again, I mentioned we do not want to be the gatekeepers. We wanted to remove all barriers to entry for the content creator and for the music artist. And I know now that concept is so common. When we first started out, there was no other platform that was providing free music outside of, you searching on Google free music to use. And then you would find something janky or whatever. But we were the first platform to do that. And so we didn't charge creators for a very long time while we tested out all the functionality, while we tested out features, and we built features with them in mind and with them directly. And then music artists are still completely free, and they'll remain completely free until otherwise. But both sides start off free. On the content creator side, however, they do have an option. It's optional to upgrade should they want additional features across the site. So should they want a playlist and, curate their own playlist of songs and themes and all of that, they have those functionalities as well as sound effects and other features, additional filtering for music. But it's completely optional and anyone can use it for free.
And how do we go about finding Thematic?
You can find Thematic at hellothematic.com. You can find us on socials at hellothematic. You can find us pretty much anywhere at hellothematic.
Stephanie, thank you so much. This has been a wealth of information.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so glad I can come on board. And obviously I can talk about this for days. I'd love to come on and speak about more about Thematic for sure.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound designed by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Busan.